Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes, and I'm here to talk to you about Vedic astrology, what it means to you, and how it affects your life, and how it affects the life of the world, especially in different locations of the world. So, I'm going to give you a brief um, read of my background. I've been an astrologer for a bit over 30 years. Vedic astrology or Indian astrology is the astrological tradition I started with. I learned Western astrology shortly after that, and I learned tarot and a variety of other things after that. I'm a meditator. I'm also a Swami of the Kriya Yoga lineage. So um, that's a tradition out of India, um, founded by a teacher named Babaji, and um, it's connected with Paramahamsa Yogananda. He's a great saint from India. Um, the so I know about mantras. I know about yantras and tantras, and I know about remedies for various afflictions in astrology charts. Um, and I can be. I've served time. Sounds like I've been in jail, but not really. I've served time as the president of the Council of Vedic Astrology. I've also been on the boards of various astrological organizations, some for a little while, some for a few years. And I'm a teacher at Kepler College, at the American College of Vedic Astrology, and at Daira Academy. Plus, I teach students one-on-one, and I do readings for people over the phone or over Zoom, like we're talking right now. And if somebody wants to contact me about their individual chart or studying Vedic astrology, I'd encourage them to contact me. They can contact me at let me put the captioning in. I just put the captioning on, and I'll put this on when I post it too. But they can contact me at either NEIVAS at Comcast.net. That'll be down for maybe a few days because I just switched cell phones, and I essentially had to switch cell phones. I was hoping to avoid it until I could not switch over when my phone stopped charging. So I just said, oops, I better act quickly or else I'm not going to have anything left on my cell phone. And so that particular email may be down for a little bit. A more reliable email is Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. That's GARYGOMES G at gmail.com. And you can contact me for readings or for suggestions for remedial measures or payas, and I'll be talking more about those in the coming weeks. I want to talk pretty much this week about some planetary changes are coming. Some are coming around July 2nd, some are coming sooner, some are coming within the week, and we will have a full moon on the 14th of September. I'm sorry, of June. My apologies. It's been a long day. I've been going since around 10 o'clock, since around 9 o'clock this morning. And it's around quarter to 9 my time tonight. So it's been kind of a long day. But I have more to do tomorrow, so that's why I'm doing this now. And so my personal problems aside, they're none of your concern. Don't worry about me. I'm okay. the so we have a full moon happening on the 14th, and it's a very strong full moon. The sun is in Taurus and the moon is in Scorpio, and that doesn't agree with what you heard in Western astrology. It's because Indian astrology uses different zodiacs than Western astrology does. But it's going to be a significant full moon. And it'll occur roughly when the sun's getting ready to change signs and go into Gemini. And so that means the sun will be right at the end of a sign. So it's a transition period, and better communication should ensue. The other important change, or a change I want to bring your attention to, is that Venus is changing signs over the next week, and there'll be a really significant Venus-Rahu conjunction around. Let me just check the map. I'm going to pull the map really and share with you. Yeah, astrological map. So Venus is at 22 degrees. Rahu's at 28 degrees. So roughly by next Friday, which is Venus's day, next Thursday, so Thursday or Friday, we'll see a Venus-Rahu conjunction. So Venus will be passing over the space where Rahu is sitting right now. And that's going to be a significant conjunction. Venus rules things like mathematics, truth, material success, and also to a certain extent, romance or romantic feelings. The other thing it rules is, let's say, for people who have a Venus, a strong Venus in their chart, is it rules their health. So it can actually hurt a person's health if Venus is badly placed. And it can give some problems, especially with personal happiness. Venus and Jupiter are the two planets most responsible for contentment or feeling at peace with the world. So if either of those planets is really badly afflicted, the person feels a little bit upset. One of the reasons you're seeing people getting all fired up on both sides of the political scene. So, and it's not just in the United States. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson just narrowly survived a recall or a vote of no confidence, with his party. So, and there are governmental disputes. Everybody's really getting very, very upset and very, very anxious right now. And that's normal because Venus is also the planet which governs trade along with Mercury. Mercury's okay, but it's sitting in Venus's sign. You see right here. And the sun is already also sitting in Venus's sign. So there's a lot of irritation, and I've been saying this for months. There's a lot of irritation with sitting governments. I don't think, so this isn't just confined to us in the West. It's happening in basically all around the world. So essentially, there's a tendency to think that there's this concept in economics called the fallacy of composition, but you can apply it to other disciplines as well. And that is what you see happening in your neighborhood, in your immediate environment, means that it's happening everywhere else. And while that's not necessarily true in the case of astrology, if we're seeing this happening in the chart, it actually is happening elsewhere. And so Jupiter rules over things that affect pretty much everybody. And so does Venus. And Saturn is aspecting Venus. That's making trade slow. That's making governments being able to reach cordial agreements very slow. And it's not really going to improve, I don't think, for about a year or so. And that's mainly because Rahu's in the sign connected with leadership, which is Mars. And you will start to see some disruptions, some major disruptions, I think, in leadership in October after Mars enters Aries. Right now, Mars is in position to cause real changes. You'll see like what I would call minor revolts. And some astrologers have been predicting war this summertime or this year. And I think even that's a little bit too pessimistic for me. I think we are going to see war within this decade, but probably not for a good couple of years. And to be truthful, we are in the middle of a war already. So predicting war is sort of like saying, okay, I'm predicting war between Russia and the rest of the world, when in fact we're probably in a state of war already with that country. So so essentially Europe and everyone else is lined up with Ukraine and against Russia. So saying that war is going to break out is really a little bit bizarre. But I don't think we're going to see a major conflagration. I think this is very much like the 60s, where we saw small wars or proxy wars and a lot of local rebellions going on. Now, Vietnam wasn't a small war. There were a lot of people's lives were lost in that conflict. But it at worst, it looks to be a Vietnam type conflict at worst, or size. And also, one of the things that's happening is our government's gotten very good at hiding the effects of war. They learned their lessons from Vietnam really, really well. So if the United States, let's say, is involved in a war, we don't see the intense press coverage. So let's say you think back to the to the two Arab wars, there wasn't a lot of movement on the ground. The press was restricted; they couldn't see very much. Same was true of Afghanistan. It wasn't on your face every night at 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. on the nightly news like Vietnam was. So I think one of the things that'll happen is we're going to see conflicts that benefit us being publicized, that benefit the home country being publicized, and conflicts that don't put the home country in a good light being marginalized. This isn't a new activity. As a matter of fact, Vietnam was really the first war where press access wasn't controlled properly. So that was almost a fluke. That was almost something that happened, and they went back and said, "Whoops, we'll never do that again. We made that mistake once." And previous wars like Korea, World War II, World War One, there was the same kind of control over the press, and the press was complicit in that. And I'm not making this up. There were, for obvious reasons, information that the United States press agreed not to share with the public for security purposes. Vietnam, all those restrictions were off pretty much. So, and like I said, they never quite forgot that. They never quite forgot that the media, number one, could be managed, and number two, had to be managed. So this is not conspiracy. This is government. This is governance. This is Machiavellian politics, and Machiavelli was very smart, right? And we have Saturn aspect in Venus. That aspect will end in around 8 days. So you'll start to see people feeling a little bit more light or a little bit happier. Venus will be in its own sign. People will be less tense and less uptight about economic conditions. Inflation will still continue. This is about another year's worth of inflation at least. The United States is in a Rahu Saturn subperiod. As I've said many times before, the world is in what I would call an expansionary cycle, which means even though the economy can contract, the overall supply of money will increase. And you'll see a lot more people going to gold and more conservative assets over the next few years, less speculative assets. So let me just make sure the screen is sharing properly. I don't want to screw this up. I may have already done it. So let's make sure this goes on properly. And I'm going to do this one more time. All right. So the thing I am worried about with Venus in Aries is I am worried about the possibility of volcanoes, earthquakes, and Jupiter and Mars are in conjunction. And that's mainly because Venus is connected with water events. Okay, so things like tidal waves and things like that can come, but it's usually when Venus is with Ketu, not when Venus is with Rahu. When Venus is with Rahu, you'll see things like sex scandals or money scandals coming up. But they're both in the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars, which is in the 12th house, and it's enlivened by Jupiter. So there's some possibility, at least in certain parts of the world, that you'll have some activity, some unfriendly weather activity happening. It looks to me more water-bound just because of the signs involved, and more volcanic and less earthquake related, but earthquakes, I wouldn't rule earthquakes out. Saturn's aspecting Venus, that's very difficult for commerce. And Jupiter and Mars are in conflict. So again, we have some potential for gun violence in the United States in this chart. Saturn is in Aquarius. This is a time of technological innovation that'll back away. The markets will essentially calm down between roughly June and January, and then they'll start to get nervous again because things are a little bit unsettled. There'll be signs of things changing. And in terms of Russia, I'm hoping the transit of Venus to Taurus will help start to, Russia and the Ukraine will start to ameliorate any problems they're having. In terms of politics, we have the Venus-Rahu conjunction, which is making a big show out of January 6th hearing. It's a legitimate hearing. People want to know what happened. People are certainly free to investigate what happened, but I think it's also important to understand what happened on both sides. So it'll be interesting to watch and see how this unfolds, and also interesting to watch how this impacts the fall elections, because right now the Republicans are given past indicators like economic problems. The party in power usually loses seats in the midterm elections, and number two, the economy is a big issue. It's one way voters can send a message to Washington that they're not happy with the way the economy is going if they can get rid of some people from the other party who are in power. And it happened even when the economy was showing signs of improvement. So I think back to the Bill Clinton years, the 1994 election, which saw a Republican wave come in, and even as far back as 1984, when the Democrats won more seats. 1982, when the Democrats won more seats in Congress. So I think this will be interesting to see how this all turns out, and whether or not this scandal about the election will actually affect the 2022 election. It'll be really, really interesting to see it. And but pretty much, at least it's been my experience in the United States, the voters vote their pocketbook. So Nixon was in trouble not only because he broke into Watergate. Nixon was in trouble because the economy was floundering too, and it was the start of the inflationary 70s, and the employment numbers were tanking. So it wasn't just Watergate that essentially sidelined him. It was that he had no support coming from any other perspective. So we'll see what happens. These are interesting times. Right now, as we're talking, the moon is with K2, so there's a general fear and uncertainty in the population right now about what's going on. Saturn is not aspecting. Saturn is actually aspecting the moon in K2. And Mars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mars is actually aspecting the moon as well. So everybody's a little bit tense and a little bit, they expect everything to be perfect. Okay. So when these combinations occur, it's always interesting to look at these things and see how they're affecting the world. All right. Oh, by the way, I did want to mention, just for self-promotion, I do have a book in the works. I know I've been saying that for months, but I really do. I will have a lot more time to work on it after July 1st. And also, the school, I'll have a lot more time to work on the school and on study programs for you folks after in July, and also in working on additional channels in July. So that I'm really excited about that, and I'm really looking forward to that. So we'll see what happens, but this year should be a busy year for me, especially online. All right, now I need to get out of here, but this is acting kind of funny, so I'm gonna stop the share and go back and see what's causing that. Wondering why that's doing what it's doing. Now I see. Okay. So also, I expect next week to have a new program up and running on this computer. This is an old version of the astrology software that I like to use, and I got an upgraded version just about 2 weeks ago, and I haven't had time to really do the upgrade. So it'll be interesting to see what new information that gives us. So let's go to the, oh, by the way, if you like what I'm doing, I'd encourage you to subscribe. I'd encourage you to like it. I'd encourage you to share it with your friends. And because I do want to grow this channel, I do want to have a lot of students. I do want to have a really strong stretch in making Jyotish or Indian astrology understandable to Westerners. And there are a variety of techniques I've learned through the years, which are really excellent techniques, which aren't standard. So, but they're derived from classical texts. You know, they're not made up, like fanciful thinking kinds of things. They're actually um, they're actually classically based. So I think you'll find this interesting, the direction I'm heading in. So over here, let's look at Jupiter and Mars. So we have maybe a possibly some volcanic activity in Hawaii or the Aleutian Islands. I've already said this before, but more so, this is an economic issue over here. And I'm thinking overall, while these islands are vulnerable to natural disasters or calamities, they're not necessarily going to experience them. It's more likely that places like San Francisco, and I have nothing against San Francisco, Southern California may experience some problems with the weather. Okay. And so this is almost, let me just see, that's Mercury. That's a moon line, and that's a Mercury line. So towards the middle of the week, I would expect to see some kinds of scandals in California, Arizona, up through Nevada and Utah, and into the Midwest, and also a lot of media coverage down in Arizona and up through pretty much through Wisconsin and into Canada. And some, and like I said, scandals in this part of the country. There have been some recall efforts. There's a very strong chance that that the mayor of Los Angeles may not be Democratic anymore, although that's not quite a certainty. And there was a recall of the district attorney in San Francisco. And let's see what this line is. This line right here is. And it's a Jupiter-Mars line intersecting in both Mississippi and Michigan and Ohio, Indiana, and also over here in Cuba and western parts of South America, in particular Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Colombia, Venezuela. And so South America is going to have some problems. There's a moon line running through Brazil. Brazil is still going to have problems with, it's going to have economic problems over the next few months, and especially down here in this part of the country. And let me just see now. That's a Venus line. So there'll be some political scandals over here, maybe close to Sao Paulo, and also in Rio, and I think even in Brasilia. Saturn's in the western parts, or the eastern part, excuse me, of Brazil, and it's intersecting a Mercury line. So there'll be communications problems or maybe power outages in Brazil. And the Saturn line runs up through close to England, close to Norway, but doesn't quite connect with either country, and Ireland. And there's a sun line. So you can expect a sun line over here, and let's see, a Jupiter line over here. So expect England, France, Spain, Portugal, and Libya down through this region of Africa, down close to Ghana, expecting to have some problems with government officials and political scandals. The other thing is you probably see some violent activity in Germany and maybe even in the Netherlands, and some fear of violence in Algeria and down through Western Africa. The moon and Venus are passing through Turkey, so that's not a bad combination, but economically it's not that great. The moon is not in good shape right now. It's in the same sign with Ketu, so you'll see them having, so the moon and Venus are not malefic planets, but they're both involved with Rahu and Ketu right now. So there'll be some governmental scandals in Turkey, especially in Ankara, and also it looks like in Lebanon and Israel, drawing down these lines. Some violence in Israel as well, violence in Eastern Europe, and some violence in Western Turkey. Mercury's passing through Eastern Europe, Ukraine, and Iran. So you can expect to see those countries in the news a lot more. Saturn's passing over here, and it's crossing a Rahu line. So you can expect Madagascar to have some economic issues if it's not already. And there'll be a lot of coverage of Mercury and the various Uzbekistan countries and Afghanistan and Pakistan over the next few days. India will also has a sun line, so you're going to see the government acting very strongly as an enforcer in India. So the government will actually take on new power or new responsibilities. And in Jupiter, so this gives military dictatorships in Southeast Asia, especially around Thailand and Cambodia, and even as far south as Indonesia, this combination right here. And let's see now. Venus Rahu line passing over Japan, not good. Japan's prone to earthquakes, pretty much like Turkey is, but Japan has, and California are. But Japan is essentially in an earthquake zone, so you can see some kind of volcanic activity in this part of the world, or some kind of earthquakes. And also Mercury's passing close to Borneo, so you'll see Western Australia, Eastern Australia in the news a lot, and also worries about the economy in Middle Australia. New Zealand, again, is largely left out of the mix, although Saturn is passing close to New Zealand, so there can be some economic pressure on New Zealand, obviously. So basically, if I were to go back and look at areas I'm particularly worried about, is Western United States, this region right here. Mars and Jupiter affecting Hawaii, perhaps in terms of accidents or disasters happening in that part of the world. And scandals in California up through the Midwest, up into middle Canada. And let me just move my puss over a little bit. And the moon, economic problems definitely in eastern Brazil, and also weather-related problems happening in and extraordinary governmental controls happening in Western South America, especially in Peru and Bolivia and Ecuador. The other areas I'm a little bit worried about are the UK, Spain, and France, all the way down to North Africa. And I'm worried about violence in Italy and in southern France and all the way up into Norway. And also Moon, Venus, and Rahu causing essentially political scandals or dishonesty or anxiety in the Middle East near Turkey, and Israel and Lebanon look like they're involved. And finally, you go over here, Saturn. It sets up really good conditions for dictatorships, along with the sun in this region of the world, in Pakistan, excuse me, and Afghanistan, and also in Western India. And finally, Jupiter and Mars indicate some violent activity in Southeast Asia. And again, inflationary pressure, a lot of inflationary pressure. And also some militaristic action on the part of the Chinese, but not invasion, but against their own people. Finally, we have some economic problems in this part of the world, but also some political scandals happening in Eastern Russia and Japan and near the Philippines and in Australia. So not really a great world map, but I've seen worse. And again, these are all opportunities for improvement as well as emergencies. So one good thing is things will start to move forward after July 2nd when Saturn moves out of Aquarius. It looks like it wants reforms, but it can't figure out where to start. And it'll stop afflicting Rahu, which will be really, really good for most people. So Rahu alone in and of itself creates a lot of antagonism, a lot of dissatisfaction with life. And Saturn aspecting Rahu is like two Saturns combining. It's really kind of a nasty combination. And Mars is also aspecting K2 right now. It'll continue aspecting K2 for a while. And Saturn's also aspecting from a retrograde aspect. It's aspecting Libra and K2 as well. So the nodes are being controlled by Saturn right now. So the nodes can be really negative, but they're also positive influences in that they can bring about change or bring about disruption. And right now they're teasing us. We know something's going to happen, but we don't know what. But I don't think we're going to see a large scale war this year. I'm going to go on record of saying that. We'll continue to see what I would call minor plagues or minor illnesses. It's just because of Jupiter-Mars conjunction, but that'll be over in October. So Jupiter's really been what's spreading COVID, you know, contrary to Jupiter's good reputation. And we should see an end to that pretty soon. I'm going to go back to the regular chart, and we'll look and see what's happening with the individual signs. Okay. All right. So for people with Aries rising, there's a lot of focus on dissatisfaction with relationship life. They're feeling a little bit caged in or oppressed or really anxious about relationship life. And they're not sure they want to stay in a relationship because K2's in the same sign with the moon right now. But financially, they're doing okay. There's a lot of luck in this chart. Children are essentially keeping relationships together, or even things like shared assets are keeping relationships together. You may see some people with a prominent Aries in their chart decide to break away from a relationship over the next 6 months and then reconsider it after January of 2023. But this is only going to be for charts that have significant relationship problems already. So let's say your relationship's going fine, then I don't think you have anything to worry about. There is a little bit of shyness about getting what one wants with this sign. Jupiter's in the 12th house. He's trying to do the right thing. The rising sign is sort of hemmed in by, well, yeah, I was going to say it's hemmed in by benefics, but that's not true. It's hemmed in though. And essentially what that does is the sign doesn't feel like it can function independently or properly. So Saturn's in the 11th house, good for gains, but slow gains. And the Lord of the 9th house is in the 12th house, so this sign will probably have better luck if it travels than if it stays stationary. For Taurus, the Lord of Taurus is in the 12th house. So again, this is not good for economic things. It's not good for financial activity. Taurus likes finance, it likes money, it enjoys money. It will feel a little bit inclined to show off. There is some possibility that Tauruses will engage in extramarital affairs, although, like I said, that really depends on the individual. These are just proclivities in the chart. And the moon is in the 6th house, so that'll give it a lot of fearlessness, a lot of ambition, and also a potential to acquire bad habits. So Taurus has to be careful about that this year. Yeah, there's a certain Taurus should be careful just to make sure that it doesn't slip and get into some bad behaviors like drinking too much or doing other things that will affect his health. Career-wise, it's doing great. In terms of financial gains, it's doing marvelous. Relationship partners are doing well as well. But again, like I said, there's that temptation to slip into bad behavior. So just be a little bit careful, Taurus. For Gemini, I'm going to close this down and start up again. For Gemini, Gemini has its Lord in the 12th house. So this is fairly common for the first 3 signs we're seeing right now. The first house Lord is afflicted. It's in the house of loss. So this sign is focusing a lot on loss, on financial deprivation. And I think also from this chart, the moon is in the 5th house with K2. that's a little bit detrimental. So it'll give discipline problems with children, or children will seem to be moody or depressed. The Lord of the second house is in the fifth house of K2, so that'll give unexpected monetary boosts, but can also give unexpected health issues. And sometimes in the chart, you see Mars in this sign, the knees will get, or the legs will get afflicted. Saturn's in this sign, and so a lot of people have leg or back problems over the next couple of months. But Geminis in particular are really prone to them. And let's see now. Also, Virgos, Libras, and Aquarians are going to be, and Capricorns are going to have issues with the legs and the back. But basically, from the chart, Cancer has the seventh lord in the eighth house, so it'll feel kind of isolated or kind of alone. But you have Mars and Jupiter in the ninth house, which is a very good placement for the sign. Career life will do well. Career life is going to show a temporary bump upward towards fame, and it'll be up to the sign to capitalize on it over the next few months. So if it can do so, it should do so. The 12th house Lord is in the 11th house, so whatever the sign makes, it'll spend, but it'll be for things like publicity or advancement in career. Might be connected with cars too. It's just because of the way K2 sits in the fourth house as it is. For Leo has Saturn in the seventh house, so that'll make it sort of like stuck with relationship partners, although it really doesn't feel like it wants to be. But that'll pass over the next couple of months. K2's with the moon in the third house, so the sign is very aggressive, but its mood is changing over what it wants to do. And sixth house looks fine, although there may be some fighting with relationship partners, and Mars and Jupiter are in the eighth house. So that means for this sign, luck will be in the background or kind of hidden away. Venus is with Rahu in the ninth house. That's a good combination. It's good for career strength. Sun is in the 10th house, so there'll be a lot of career focus in this particular chart this next week. And let's see now. Yeah, by the end of the week, as I said, by the middle of the week, as a matter of fact, the sun will change signs and will be in Gemini. So this sign will actually have financial gains before the end of the week. So this is not a bad time for Leo. It's just relationships or partnerships seem to be a little bit rough. For Virgo has Mars and Jupiter in the seventh house. A lot of fighting with relationships, a lot of fighting about home matters. And there are some obstructions because Saturn is sitting in the sixth house. So there are unexpected delays or unexpected problems. Venus is in the eighth house. That's not a bad placement along with Rahu. So there's a lot of interest in spiritual matters and spiritual dimensions of life. But the one thing you have to keep in mind is this combination can be a little bit detrimental to finances, because all the finances will go to the relationship partner. For Mercury, Sun and Mercury are in the ninth house, so that's good for career success, and career life will expand. For a Libra, K2's in the first house. One of the things this tends to do to Libra is to make it a little bit unnoticed or obscure. And with the moon in the first house, like it is in this chart, it'll make the sign worry about money over the next week, worry about career. really until around the 15th or the 16th. And then it'll start to be a little bit more sure of itself. And also Saturn's in the 5th house, so it's good for the sign's work ethic. Jupiter and Mars are in the 6th house, so it'll have some people who are jealous of the sign, who are teachers or who are advisors. Venus is in the 7th house, so this will bring relationship opportunities to the sign, but again, there's a certain amount of caution which is indicated when Venus is with Rahu in the 7th house, so you don't let your expectations run greater than they should. So you'll attract like really spectacular looking people, but they'll tend to be a little bit uncertain about whether or not they want to be with you. And they'll be reaching out to you because of anxiety, not because of attraction. Sun and Mercury are in the 8th house. That's not a bad combination, the 8th Lord. But it does indicate unexpected gains or gains that come as a result of unexpected contacts. And finally, the moon being the Lord of the house of career in the 1st house makes this sign very career conscious and very conscious of its karma in the world over the next few months. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Sun and Mercury in the 7th house. This is good for financial luck and financial gains, especially to a relationship partner. Jupiter's in the 5th house with Mars, which is a good placement for this particular rising sign. Saturn's in the 4th house, so home life isn't all that happy. Venus is in the 6th house with Rahu, so you'll have competition from other females or females in terms of career life. But basically, this is not a bad time for Scorpio, just in general. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius' Lord, Jupiter sits in the 4th house, so there'll be a lot of focus on fighting and doing what's right. And you will see some possible romantic tension for the sign starting in July 2nd, around July 2nd, but it's already there. And there's a temptation for the sign to get involved in extramarital affairs with the Venus-Rahu conjunction, which will thankfully be over within about 6 days or so. And finally, Mercury and Sun are in the 6th house, so some of the signs' vitality may be a little bit drained or a little bit absent. And finally, there'll be financial gains through unexpected or strange people. So this is not necessarily a bad forecast for Sagittarius. Capricorn has a lot of thoughts about money in the 2nd house, a lot of financial activity going on, so it'll give some financial gain for the sign. Jupiter's in the 3rd house with Mars, so there'll be a strong desire to learn new skills, learn new abilities. Venus is in the 4th house along with Rahu, and it'll make the sign very desirous of amorous relationships, but not really able to act on it. And Sun and Mercury are in the 4th house, and usually when you see a combination like this, there's a lot of focus on hidden money and on money that's going to repair a house or fix a house. And finally, Moon is in the 10th house, aspected by Saturn and Mars. So career life is pretty intense. The sign is going to have a lot of career activity. For Aquarius, Saturn sits in the 1st house. That's fine. It's what's called a Panch Mahapurusha Yoga, and essentially it means that Saturn sits like a king in his own sign. That's not the literal meaning, but Saturn's really strongly placed in its own sign. So it's called Asashi Yoga, and I've mentioned this before. So it gives the sign good ability to command or control. Saturn aspect and Venus gives it a chance to interact with people without worrying too much about sexual contact or sexual um, relations. If they're trying to get involved with somebody um, relationship wise, it's a little bit annoying because Saturn's blocking it. But given the fact that Venus is with Rahu, it's probably for the best. For money situations, this looks like a good placement. And it looks like financial gains will come to the sign. The moon is in the ninth house along with Ketu. This is a good placement, but it's not so good for trade. It's not good, so good for financial activities. But it does form kind of, it's not really a Raj Yoga because it's the sixth lord, but there'll be increasing enemies among bosses or supervisors, but also increasing work opportunities because Saturn and Mars are aspecting the moon. Finally, last but not least, Pisces has a Hamsa Yoga or a Jupiter Great Personality Yoga in the first house. And it has the second lord and ninth lord in the first house. So that's good for luck. That's good for financial success. The eighth lord is in the second house, so it gives unexpected gains. But a lot of spending money on cosmetics and things like that, and a lot of emotional turmoil for the sign. Sun and Mercury are in the third house in Taurus. So again, spending money on looking good or trying to maintain the impression that the person looks good. And Moon and Ketu being in Libra in the eighth house, again, gives relationship partners who are a little bit moody, a little bit difficult to deal with. And finally, if we have Saturn in the 12th house, it'll give additional expenses to the sign, but these will probably abate within about 2 weeks. So that's it for this week, folks. Don't worry. Everything will work out okay. And I want to say I love you all. If you want to contact me for readings or just to talk, that's fine. If you want to contact me about study, that's terrific. And please like, share, and subscribe to the page. I hit a few more subscribers this week. We're creeping up to 500 subscribers. We need more. So please share with your friends. Recommend the show to your friends, and we'll go from there. Thanks a lot, folks. As always, it's been a thrill for me, and I love you all. And namaste. God bless you and take care of each other. And I'll be signing off. Bye, everyone. Namaste.